Four types of houses in ancient Rome. 1. Insulae. Insulae were the ancient Roman equivalent of apartment buildings. These structures could reach up to 10 stories high. They were functional and compact, but not always stable. The ground floor was considered prime real estate. It was often used for shops or upscale apartments. As you went up, the apartments became smaller and cheaper. Living in an insula came with risks. Fire was a constant threat. Structural collapse was not uncommon. These safety issues prompted Emperor Augustus to impose a height limit. He restricted insulae to 70 Roman feet. This was still a considerable height for ancient construction. Despite the dangers, insulae housed the majority of Rome's urban population. 2. Domus. The domus was the top tier of Roman houses, luxurious, spacious, and a clear symbol of wealth. Some domus even had street-facing shops. Inside, the domus was a complex of rooms. The centerpiece was the atrium, a central hall with an open roof. This design was for catching rainwater. The Romans were early adopters of resource conservation. The water feature, called the impluvium, served as both decoration and utility. The domus had its own shrine, called a lararium. Another notable room was the triclinium, a dining room where people reclined to eat. This practice of eating while lying down was common for Romans. A domus wasn't just a house. It was a multi-purpose structure. It served as an office. It functioned as a religious center. It was an ideal venue for parties. The domus essentially contained all aspects of Roman life under one roof. 3. Villa. Villas were the countryside retreats of wealthy Romans. These estates were comparable to modern luxury resorts. A typical villa was essentially a mansion with an attached farm. They were equipped with amenities like private baths and heated floors. Many villas were functioning farms. They produced goods like wine and olive oil. Owning a villa was a subtle way to display wealth. It was considered more tasteful than urban ostentation. 4. Farmhouse. Not all Romans lived in grand structures. For the average citizen, there was the farmhouse. These modest dwellings were scattered across the Roman countryside. They were the homes of the working class. Farmhouses were typically small, sturdy buildings made of stone. They prioritized function over form. These structures were built for practicality and durability. You wouldn't find elaborate decorations or artwork here. The focus was on utility. Living in a farmhouse usually meant you were involved in agriculture. Farmers, farmhands, and rural laborers called these places home. The living quarters were often cramped. Entire families shared a few rooms. However, farmhouse life had its advantages. The inhabitants enjoyed fresh air and homegrown food. They faced less risk of structural collapse or fire compared to urban dwellers. The simple life had its own rewards.